Hey everyone, it's Justine. Welcome to a new video and happy World Card Making Day. Today I'm making 5 cards and showing you how to use stencils in 5 different ways. Let's get started. So I'm going to start off by prepping my stencils. You can see I have a box on my surface and I'm in a well-ventilated area, so I would suggest even maybe doing this outside. I'm going to grab some pixie spray and I'm going to spray the adhesive about 12 inches above the surface of the stencil. I'm going to give it a light spray and then let it dry for about 1 minute. Now, Scrapbook.com has come out with brand new stencils. These are 6x8 stencils, so they're perfect for both 4x6 cards as well as 5x7, which is really nice. I'm going to start off with the Moroccan tile stencil, and I'm going to place it on my surface. The adhesive side that I sprayed down, so if you just stick your fingers on it, you'll see which one it has the adhesive on it. It's going to be able to keep my stencil in place without having to add any extra tape. I'm going to begin my blend. I'm going to be using Distress Oxide inks and I'm going to be using Squeezed Lemonade to start off with. I am using this blending tool from Scrapbook.com that is new. It's the ink blending tool, and what's really nice about it is it has a dome shape and it's a lot thicker than the Ranger blending foams, I find. So I found it to not leave any harsh lines because of the dome shape. It doesn't have that edge to it like the other ones do. And it's really fun because you could just switch off your sponges and then you're good to go. So you can have one for each color without having necessarily to have a blending tool for each color. So I'm going in now with some carved pumpkin, and you can see I always go back and forth between the colors in order to get a really good blend between the two of them. So I always keep the previous color open and ready. I have 2 blending tools, so that makes my life a lot easier. The ink blending tool actually comes with 2 blending tools, so that's going to make things nice and easy for you. That way I don't have to change my sponge as often, and I can go back and forth between the 2 colors I'm currently trying to get the blend with. Next up is Picked Raspberry, and I'm going in once again. You can see that the ink is going on nice and thick, so these foam tools really have a lot of ink inside them when you pat them on the pad. And if you find that you're not getting that result, it probably means that your oxide inks need to be re-inked. If you're familiar with the original Distress line, you'll know that those pads really last quite a long time when you're using them, but I do find that the oxide inks need to be refilled a little bit more often, probably due to the formula of ink. So if you're not getting good results, that might be the reason. So the last 2 colors I'm going to use are Wilted Violet and Salty Ocean to complete this blend. I absolutely love this Moroccan tile stencil because it has a lot of negative space. So the areas where the tiles are nice and large. And I like the fact that it has thicker lines as well because it's going to give a really cool contrast with the white. So after I finish going back and forth between the colors, really getting the perfect blend, I'm going to go ahead and lift off the stencil now that it's done. The Pixie Spray is a temporary adhesive. If you throw it in some warm water afterwards, it's going to completely come off. Now in this video, I'm showing how to create the blends as well as the backgrounds, but I'm not going into a ton of detail on how I created the final cards because I simply did some stamped sentiments and cut them out with a paper trimmer. I'm kind of in the process of moving, so basic supplies are my jam right now. This sentiment here is from the Encouraging Words stamp set, and it says how rare and beautiful you are. I absolutely love this for an encouraging sentiment. And here's a look at the final card. So moving on to the next card and the next way of using your stencils, you can use some of the Bold Stripes stencil as well as Glacier Paste to create some different looks. So you can use really any kind of paste here. You have Nouveau embossing mousse, you could use Glitz glitter gel, you could use glimmer paste, really whatever you like. I really am loving this Glacier Paste. It gives such a beautiful shine when it's all finished. It's very smooth. I'm applying it with the tonic spatula, so it's wide enough here for me to get a look going across the entire stripe. It comes in some beautiful colors, and I find the colors to be relatively subtle, and the look when it's all finished is just gorgeous. So I'm going to be just applying the Glacier Paste onto each one of the stripes in different colors. Now, Glacier Paste actually comes in 6 different colors, which is quite convenient. And the first one that I used here was the Golden Era, followed by Green Envy, then Frostbite, which is that beautiful blue, Quicksilver, which is exactly what it describes itself as, and then lastly, some Sea Sprite. The other color that you aren't seeing on here at the moment is Oat Red, and that one there is a really beautiful Christmas red that I can't wait to use on my Christmas cards. To finish off the card, I simply stamped Happy Birthday from the Cheerful Sentiment stamp from Scrapbook.com. That one has a variety of different sentiments for different holidays, and it was really perfect just to add a simple sentiment in between the stripes. This card couldn't have been easier aside from a little bit of patience needed with the drying time. Drying time for this card took about a half an hour. Moving on to the next stencil, this is the Little Boxes stencil, also an exclusive to Scrapbook.com. And this time I didn't use the spray adhesive. So I had originally sprayed it, so I went and washed it with some more water, made sure it was nice and dry with a paper towel, and then I went ahead and used it. I'm holding the stencil in place with my fingers. You could also use washi tape to do this if you like. I'm inking through the stencil using Versamark ink, and you got to push fairly hard for this in order for the ink to transfer through the stencil because it's got a little bit of a thicker layer to go through here. You can hold it up to the light, and if you see any areas that are not shiny, then you can go ahead and re-stencil that. I would recommend checking before you remove the stencil, not like how I did it. I'm going to use some clear embossing powder from Ranger, and you can use white or any color for this technique. We're going to do a resist using the stencil almost like a stamp. And so now I'm just going to use my heat gun, and I'm going to heat this off screen. Another way you can apply ink aside from using the ink blending tool is to use the stencil blending brushes from Scrapbook.com. These not only are great for using with stencils, they're also great for creating backgrounds. And what I love, I think, most of them is it makes a beautiful decoration in my craft room when I have them in a nice jar. And the nice thing about the stencil blending brushes is that they are nice and large, so they're good for my hands. I have pain in my hands sometimes if I'm trying to hold super small objects. It creates a really nice light blend, and it also creates a little bit of a texture with those bristles as well. And so it creates like just a really beautiful way of doing it. And you can reuse your blending tool between colors as long as you wipe it off on a scrap sheet of paper. They create beautiful blends, and they're just so much fun to use. I absolutely love these brushes. These are also able to be washed in water. Now you can see I used the same colors as the first card, so Squeezed Lemonade, Carved Pumpkin, Picked Raspberry, Wilted Violet, and Salty Ocean, but I changed up the order and I ended up getting a little bit of brown in between with the Squeezed Lemonade and the Wilted Violet. So a nice and easy fix for this is I removed about an inch of space from my card panels. So I put it in my card trimmer, I trimmed an inch from the center, and I created this really fun diagonal that made it perfect to peep through a sentiment. So I added the sentiment, "You got this." This is from one of the new stamp sets from Scrapbook.com. It is also from the encouraging word stamp that we used for the very first card with the "How Rare and Beautiful You Are" sentiment. And I added a very small heart. This is from the Cheerful Sentiments stamp set that I used on the second card. So I mixed and matched a little bit there because I didn't stamp it perfectly in the center. So I thought I would add that little heart for extra detail. It also got rid of that brown area, which was perfect. The next stencil that I'm going to be using is the Dashed stencil, and I'm going to be using some blender brushes. These are called the Life Changing Blender Brushes by Picket Fence Studios, and Scrapbook.com now carries their entire bundle of ink blending brushes. Now these here have the softest bristles and are my preferred choice of blending tool when I do blends, which is really, really often. These here can give you expert looks even if you're a beginner because the bristles, there's so many of them, they're so soft, they're so gorgeous. I wanted to show you an alternative way that you could use your stencil as well though. So I used some Squeezed Lemonade and then I sprayed some water on my cloth and just gave my stencil a quick cleanup so that I could use it again. And I'm going to replace this now in the opposite direction as I did the first one. So when I had originally put it down, I put it down on an angle. The size of the stencil allows you to do that without really much issue. And then I put it down on the other side, and I'm going to be using the picked raspberry. Once again, you could use the pixie spray. I think mine had worn off by this point, and I probably needed to give it a quick respray. So I'm using my hand there to keep things in place just in case. It still had a bit of stick left, but not too much. So just going over top of the stencil once again with the picked raspberry, I think this is going to look really cool when it's all done. It's going to create a very different background, and it's a great way to stretch your stencils. So once it's all done, the magic gets to be revealed and you have this super fun party style background. I think it's really kind of busy, so I'm just going to add a very simple sentiment in the end. This is from the heartfelt encouragement stamp from Scrapbook.com that says, "Difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations," which is one of my favorite quotes of all time, so I was happy to use it. So for my last technique here with the stencils, I'm going to be using the dotted stencil, and I'm going to be using some glitter markers from Nuvo. Now when they come, you will notice that they have a white tip because they're not quite ready yet. This one here I've used before, and so I'm going to be able to color with it. And I'm going to use my stencils to add some color. Now these markers here, what you need to do is you need to push them down several times until you start seeing the ink appear in the tip. And then they're all ready to go. I'm using the markers Golden Ochre, Crushed Papaya, and Iced Americano, and I am following in a line, and all I'm doing is going in and coloring in a diagonal pattern the different dots. Now when I pull this up, you're going to see that I get a really pretty look. The stencil is all there, and these markers are super glittery, which makes it quite a fun background. I found that when I tried photographing it, it didn't really do justice, but it is really beautiful. So you can use any type of marker for this. You want to try and use markers that are dye-based and not so much watercolor markers and things because those can run underneath the stencil, but any sort of Crayola marker you could use, distress markers, you could use these glitter markers, whichever one you prefer. Since my colors were relatively fall themed, I decided to use the Fall Sampler stamp set. This one has awesome sentiments like "Hello Sweater Weather," "Gathered Together." It's got a couple of Halloween ones and then a couple of fall themed. And so I thought that would be perfect for this card. So here's a final look at some of the other cards we created today. I hope you enjoyed this video on 5 ways that you can use your stencils. Let me know below in the comments which way is your favorite, how you like to use your stencils, and apply color to them. I'm really curious to know. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and have an awesome day. Bye for now.